Today marks 52 years since NASA made history. Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first men to walk on the moon after landing the Apollo 11 spacecraft July 20th, 1969. And they wouldn't have been able to make that mission without the work of a group of black women at NASA, namely Katherine Johnson, Mary W. Jackson, and Dorothy Vaughan. Jackson was the first African-American woman engineer to work at NASA. Vaughan was a mathematician and the first African-American manager at NASA. Johnson's mathematical genius helped send the first American man into space and the first men to the moon. And Amazon founder Jeff Bezos also made history today. His space exploration company, Blue Origin, launched its new spacecraft into the blue. Bezos and his brother Mark took the trip into space with 18-year-old Oliver Damon and 82-year-old pilot Wally Funk. Damon, a Dutch student, is now the youngest person to fly to space, while Funk became the oldest. Funk was one of the Mercury 13 group of female pilots who tested for NASA's early space efforts, but women were later banned from using military facilities required for training. So this, was a long time coming for her.
I loved it, and I loved being here with all of you and your family and the four of us. We had a great time. It was wonderful.
True.
I want to go again fast.
Wow, how cool is that? Bezos celebrated the flight and looked ahead to the future of Blue Origin.
We're going to build a road to space so that our kids and their kids can build the future.
While Bezos celebrates this first flight for his company, it's not the first of its kind. Last week, Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic sent its space plane to the edge of space. That flight took off from Virgin Galactic Spaceport America Launch in New Mexico. And another billionaire, Tesla CEO Elon Musk and his SpaceX company, they're shooting beyond the moon, hoping to reach Mars. The company partially lit the Super Heavy booster on Monday. The test lasted for a few seconds in Texas. The company plans to pair the rocket with its Starship, which is also being tested at the Texas headquarters. And the cost to visit space is not just monetary. Astronauts train for years to handle physical and mental obstacles. Joining me now is Dr. Robert Satcher. In 2009, he became the first orthopedic surgeon in space. Currently, he's a surgical oncologist at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas. Welcome. I am honored and in awe of you. Welcome to BNC.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell us, as a spaceflight veteran, what do you think of people comparing Bezos and Branson and Elon Musk, comparing it to what you guys did at NASA? And why did they have to train for years to go up there?
Well, what happened today, I think, has been a long time in the making. NASA basically has wanted to see the development of commercial entities doing space flight. As I flew on the Space Shuttle Atlantis back in 2009, and that was a much more complex spaceship, which was built specifically in order to build the International Space Station. But what NASA has always wanted to do is to refocus its efforts to deep space exploration. Hence, the strategy of bringing in, commercial interests so that they could start to ferry astronauts to the International Space Station. And also, we have this other benefit of civilians being able to travel into space, which is a wonderful development.
Yeah, I still can't quite understand how that's even possible. And they keep saying that they went to the edge of space. What do they mean by that? And where did you go?
Okay, that's a great question. Yeah. They went about 50 to 60 miles above ground. So a lot of people consider about 50 to 52 miles to be the edge of space. Others consider the Kármán line, which is about 62 miles above ground, to be the edge of space. So that's where Bezos went today. Branson went up about 50, 52 miles. And so the International Space Station, which is where, I went and is in an orbit about 200 miles above ground. So it's much higher. It's actually more difficult technically to get there. And it requires, of course, a bigger spaceship with more power because you're going further. So we have had, one commercial entity, SpaceX, which has been able to accomplish that. And that also is very impressive.
So is there a big difference between then the 65 miles that were then where they went and the 200 miles that where you went in terms of what it feels like? I mean, can you describe what does it feel like to be up there in space?
Yeah, they weren't there for very long. They were for a few minutes. It probably didn't feel that much different because they had a few minutes of weightlessness. And that's the main thing that distinguishes space is that you're weightless. So you're floating, and you basically get around just floating in the air and using your hands to move around. When I went to the International Space Station, we were there for 10 days. And of course, we have astronauts who are on the International Space Station for up to a year. So they're in weightlessness and in that environment for a much longer period of time.
So what's in that International Space Station? I mean, does it look like a giant strip mall? I mean, what's going on in there?
Great question. International Space Station, as its name tells you, it was an international collaboration. And the main partners starting off were Russia and the United States. Now it has a total of 16 partners, European Space Agency, JAXA, which is Japanese Space Agency, and others. But it is a floating laboratory, basically, or a laboratory in low Earth orbit. So a lot of science is done on the International Space Station. It also serves operationally to train us to be able to build things in space. We had to assemble it. We're also learning things like, operationally how to do spacewalks. There have been hundreds of them now. I did 2 on my mission, but that teaches us how to live and function in space, which we need to do to be able to accomplish deep space exploration missions. Because a Mars mission will take, about 3 years or so round trip. And you have to live and survive and function and do all these things in space. So the International Space Station has gone a long way in getting us accustomed to that and learning what we need to do in order to survive as human beings in space.
Well, Dr. Robert Satcher, we salute you. Once again, I'm honored to speak with you. You are such an example of Black excellence. I wish kids knew your name more than they knew rappers' names. So thank you for all you've done and keep on doing what you're doing. We appreciate it. Come back and see us here on BNC.
All right. Glad to be on anytime. Thank you.
Take care. On Broadway this fall, to borrow from Shakespeare, the plays are the things. When we come back, the spotlight is on Black excellence. In theater this time, we've just had Black excellence in space. And this play actually sounds good enough to eat. Back with the mind behind the new production called Chicken and Biscuits. Stay with us. This is BNC Live.